Making pasta isn't something that you necessarily do every day, but it is really easy, great fun to make as well. And once you can make your own pasta, you can make so many different shapes. It could be just a simple tagliatelle or pappardelle, or a little ravioli like I'm going to make. And I'm going to fill these little ravioli with a gorgeous butternut squash filling and serve them with a delicious sage butter, which has got pine nuts in it, and then little shavings of parmesan, rocket leaves over the top. Wonderful. First of all, I'm going to start with the butternut squash filling. And I have one whole butternut squash. So I'm going to peel the very hard skin off it first. So once you've removed all the tough skin, cut off the top and carefully cut it into quarters. And then I'll scoop out the seeds. Cut the butternut squash into pieces about 1 or 2 centimeters in size. So, to cook the butternut squash for the puree, I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil into a pan that's on the heat, followed by just a tiny bit of butter. Pop the butternut squash into the pan, and you just gently fry the butternut squash until it's soft. I don't want to steam the butternut squash. If you steam it, it can be too wet. Then it'll just spill out of the little ravioli when we're cooking them. Salt and some pepper. So gently fry the butternut squash for about 15 to 20 minutes until it's completely soft all the way through. So about 15, almost 20 minutes later, the butternut squash is completely cooked. It's just been fried gently. You don't want to burn it. But look, you can see it's completely soft. So I'm just going to season it with a little pinch of freshly grated nutmeg, which is lovely with butternut squash. Okay. Take it off the heat, and I'm going to put it into a food processor and whiz it up to a puree. So tip the puree into a bowl, set it aside for about half an hour until it's completely cooled down. I'm going to make the pasta. All I need for this is some flour and a couple of eggs. Into the flour, I'm just going to put a good pinch of salt, and I like to whisk the eggs first to break them up. So, I'm just going to mix up the flour with the pinch of salt and the eggs in the food processor. Just turn on the food processor with just the flour in it for a couple of seconds to break up any lumps in the flour. And then add the egg in gradually. Once the pasta looks like it's practically coming together, that's enough. Stop mixing it. Tip the dough out onto the board and knead the dough. You really don't want the pasta dough to be too wet. If it is too sticky, and if it starts sticking to your hands, then it is too wet. So you need to knead in a little bit of flour. I don't need to knead in any flour. This is a good texture. So now I can cut the dough into 4 small pieces and roll it out. If you're using a pasta machine, each pasta machine has got a wide setting, and then with each turn of this little dial, the little rollers in here get thinner and thinner. And you basically just keep rolling the pasta until it's really just about a millimetre thick. A lot of people say you should be able to read the headline of a newspaper through a thin sheet of pasta. So now it's time to start assembling the ravioli. Put your butternut squash puree, spaced a couple of centimetres apart from each other, on the pasta like this. And then with a little bit of beaten egg or even water, brush between the butternut squash, because what's going to happen is I'm going to put another sheet of pasta on top and press it down so that the 2 sheets of pasta stick together. You don't want extra air inside the ravioli, otherwise they're going to burst when they're cooking in the saucepan of boiling water. Then take a cutter and cut out, really simply, your little ravioli shapes. They will keep in the fridge like this for about 24, 36 hours, or you can even freeze them. So I have a pot of boiling salted water here ready to cook the pasta, but I'm just going to first make a little bit of sage butter. All I have to do is pop in some butter. Also, I like a few pine nuts. It's good for a little bit of crunch. A few sage leaves. Put those all on the heat, allow them to bubble for about 3 or 4 minutes, by which point the sage leaves will be completely wilted and the little pine nuts and pine kernels will be toasted. The water is boiling. Pop in your ravioli, and they will only take about 2 minutes to cook. So check the ravioli to see if they're cooked, I normally take one out and give it a little pinch. And if it feels cooked between your fingertips at the edges, then you know they're all cooked. The sage butter is, just nicely cooked too. The pine nuts have just turned a shade or two darker. So turn that down and just pop the ravioli onto your plate. Absolutely gorgeous. Followed by a generous drizzle of the sage butter. And the sage leaves are delicious when cooked like this, but the flavor becomes less intense, less strong, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And I like on this as well, for a little bit of crunch and some extra flavor, a pinch of sea salt, some lovely little delicate shavings of parmesan, and a little sprinkle of rocket leaves over the top. Yum! So there, ready to serve. Butternut squash ravioli with a sage and pine nut butter.